Films have been experimenting with various narrative techniques since the early days of cinema. Unreliable narration has been a common narrative trait, where the audience cannot trust the events that the film presents. Warren Buckland, a reader in film studies, describes these movies as puzzle films, and claims that they are more than films with complex narratives. Instead, these films invite the audience to a game, where the viewer has to use their cognitive abilities to piece the narrative together. While the topic of puzzle films is more and more often discussed, the discussion almost primarily includes live-action films. Animated films are often associated with simple, traditional narratives that are targeted for younger audiences. This could be connected to the domination of US animation. However, anime films often utilize animation to create complex, multi-layered narratives that demand a deeper analysis. To show the diverse ways an animated film can create an unreliable narrative, we will analyze Satoshi Kon's 1997 anime Perfect Blue. The story is about a pop singer named Mima, who gives up her career to become an actress, but she slowly goes insane when she starts being stalked by an obsessed fan. In this video, we will introduce major topics in narrative theory presented in this book by David Bordwell, and show how animation allows Perfect Blue to mess with these narrative conventions. The first narrative concept we need to understand is the difference between the fabula, the sujet, and the style. Sujet is just a fancy word for plot, so from here on we'll refer to it as such. Basically, Bordwell describes the fabula as the story of a film, the whole chain of events in logical, chronological order. The story is never materially present in a film, instead we infer to it from the plot and the style. The plot refers to what is represented from the story, whereas the style shows how it is represented. As the plot and the fabula differ, the plot can select what parts of the fabula to show and what to hide. The plot of a detective story would hide certain pieces of information that are crucial to understand the fabula. Hidden information creates gaps in the narrative, and as Bordwell highlights, the audience will instantly try to fill these gaps using various methods. One method of gap filling is particularly crucial in unreliable narrative films, or judgments based on first impressions. Johannes Creel claims that when a film's narrative starts to fragment, we rely on the judgments we made about the characters in the film's first 30 minutes. He also adds that the audience tries to fill in the gaps with the easiest solution available. As watching a film is a complex cognitive process, the audience tends to take mental shortcuts when piecing the narrative together. For puzzle films, this is a great way to manipulate the audience. In the first act of Perfect Blue, we're introduced to two major characters alongside Mima, Uchida and Rumi. The former is a frantic fan of Mima who stalks her every movement, while Rumi is her kind and protecting assistant. The film portrays Uchida almost as a monster, whereas Rumi is shown as a cute middle-aged woman. Our first impressions are almost always based on visual outlooks, and animation enables complete creative control over the outlook of a character. When we see the scary, ugly face of Uchida, our first impression is that he will be the main villain of the movie. Consequently, it's natural that the audience will suspect that Uchida is the person behind Mima's room, the website that notes Mima's life in creepingly precise details. Later, we see Mima receive a threat that makes her discover the website. The plot of the film leaves a gap in the fabula, as it does not tell who's responsible for the threat, but the viewer is tempted to fill the gap and associate it with Uchida. Additionally, this shot also infers that someone stalks Mima. Here, the viewer takes a guess at the fabula, from the information received by the plot. As such, it comes as a shock to the first-time viewer that the person behind the creepy website is not Uchida, but Rumi. Narratively, however, Rumi's part in Mima's room should not come as a surprise. The website narrates Mima's life in such detail that no one else but Rumi could know. She follows Mima's every step and knows her frustrations as Mima talks to her frequently. However, we discard this information, assuming that Rumi knows everything about Mima because she cares for her safety. All of this is based on the first impressions that show Uchida as vicious and ugly, and Rumi as cute and caring. Their cartoon-like appearances give the viewer a false sense of security, where good and evil are easily distinguishable. As this article says, the viewer realizes that their understanding of the narrative was based on crucial errors of judgment. Animation enables Perfect Blue to shape its characters with complete creative freedom, and as such, creates very strong but false first impressions. The film then cleverly leaves a gap in the fabula that we will fill in using our judgment based on that false impression. As such, the film utilizes animation to mislead us from the beginning of the narrative. Every movie that features unreliable narration arrives to a point where reality and fiction blur, and it is the task of the viewer to untangle the plot and reveal the fabula, what actually happened. Understanding Bordel's concept of communicativeness will aid our analysis. Communicativeness describes how much a scene says as opposed to how much it could say. Perfect Blue shows a low degree of communicativeness, meaning that a lot of the scenes don't communicate as much information as they could.
Let's do a form analysis.
In this sequence, Mima has multiple blackouts marked by fades to white. Each part of the sequence ends with Mima passing out and then waking up in her bed. Each part starts with the normal happenings, making us sure that what we are watching is real. However, the events slowly turn abnormal in each part until Mima passes out and the cycle starts again. The sequence employs low communicativeness, as it does not tell the audience where the reality ends and the visions begin. An advantage animated films have over live-action ones is that they are not confined by the limitations of reality. Another benefit of animation is that it allows the film to shift between time and space seamlessly. During the sequence, Mima's reality and her hallucinations blend together with the film that she acts in. The film resembles Mima's life so much that she has a hard time differentiating the two. Here, the plot seems to throw off the viewer, as the other actress seems to interrogate Mima herself and not her character. The audience tries to fill in the gap to reveal the fabula, but there's no straightforward information that could fill it. The viewer has to piece the puzzle together from the subtle clues shown previously in the film. This article claims that Perfect Blue tests the viewer's memory and problem-solving strategies to solve the most complex parts of the movie. This rhymes with Buckland's description of the puzzle movie that invites the viewer to a game.
Satoshi Kon does the same, by using animation to blend together reality, delusion, and the film within a film. It is the task of the viewer to follow the clues and untangle this complex web of animated images.
I just had the weirdest dream. This good-looking Hungarian man took over my show.
アニメーションは複雑なストーリーを伝えるための強力な媒体です。視聴者に誤った安心感を与え、現実の法則に制限されないからです。
Perfect Blue is a perfect example of how to create a story with an unreliable narrative. Satoshi Kon masterfully uses animation to create a compelling narrative that blurs the lines between reality and fiction. Narrative analysis on animated films are extremely rare, but our example shows that these films are perfectly suited for complex narratives in many ways.